So good morning, ma'am and friends. Today I'm Zelika Nur with my partner Benedict Adrian and Yeremia Habakuk. Today we will present about the preferential trade agreement. First, yes, I will show you the types of preferential trade agreements. First type, yes, a GATT article, except if VTA. The description is an agreement on the part of a set of countries to eliminate the trade restrictions among themselves. And the second is GATT, Article XXEF-CU. It's about an agreement on the part of a set of countries to eliminate trade restrictions among themselves and to adopt a common external tariff. And the third is enabling clause allows PTA and goods trade among developing countries. And this last is GATS, Article 5. It's about an agreement to reduce barriers to trade in services among a set of countries. The second table, I will show you the step of region integration. First is free trade area. The description in an agreement on the part of a set of countries to eliminate trade restriction among themselves. And the second is customs union. It's an agreement on the part of a set of countries to eliminate trade restrictions among themselves and to adopt a common external tariff. And the third is common market, an agreement on the part of a set of countries to eliminate trade restrictions among themselves and to adopt a common external tariff and to allow the free movement of labor and physical capital among member countries. And monetary union, a common market that adopts a common currency and adopts a common monetary policy. And the last is economic union, a monetary union that adopts a process of harmonization in areas such as tax and spending policies and domestic regulations. So under the WTO analysis in first table, there are 4 ways in which a PTA can occur. And under Article XXEF of the General Agreement on Tariffs and Trade, covering trade in goods, an APTA can be notified as either a free trade area or as a customs trade in goods. Customs unions are not in table second table. Both of these PTA types involve the member countries eliminating trade restrictions. Among and the difference between the VTA and CUS option is that the latter involves member countries establishing a common external tariff, or Article XXEF of the GATT requires that WTO members who wish to form FTA or CU must be certain requirements. And first is trade barriers. Agents, non-member cannot be higher more attractive than this in extents prior to the VTA or CU. And the second is the VTA or CU must be formed within a reasonable length of time. And the last is the VTA or CU must eliminate the trade barriers and substantially all the trade among the members. So next slide is about although which many PTS are not regional number of PTR through attempt to build regional integration among contiguous countries when this As the case, PTA can be seen as steps along a continuum of increased region integration. And then this is continuum as described in this table. Here we see that VTA and CO are the first two steps toward a common market in which the regional membership has allowed for the free flows of both labor and physical capital, and a common market can be proceed further to a monetary union with a common currency and common monetary policy. And finally, an economic union is characterized by members attempting to harmonize domestic policies concerning the area of taxation and spending, domestic regulation, competition, and others area of interest. And the most notable case of an economic union is the European Union, and and one issue that inevitable arises in one issue that inevitable arises in the design of PTA in the form of FTA is how to determine whether a product is from a partner country. In VTA, a product can be imported into a low tariff member and then result in high tariff member. And a process known as tariff rate arbitrage to protect against tariff rate arbitrage, and FTA members usually establish rules of origin. And as outlined by Krishna in ROOS, can be defined using four criteria. And the first is the first is the amount, the domestic content of the good measure, either in terms value added or in direct physical terms. And the second is in terms of a change in tariff heading or CTH, where the good must move from one tariff category to another during a production process in an VTA members country. And the third is in terms of specified process or tests that outline the actual production process that must take place within the VTA. And the last is the fourth approach is in terms of substantial transformation, a loosely defined term that can vary from one instance to another. So next I will explain about the economic effect of preferential trade agreements. So the Finner distinguished in between the concept of trade creation uh, and trade diversion in PTA. Trade creation occurs when the formation of a PTA leads to a switching of imports from a high cost and source to a low cost source. Its trade diversion occurs when imports switch from a low cost source to high cost source. Uh, and the trade creation tends to improve welfare, whereas trade diversion tends to worse welfare. So here, as we can see, as trade creation is switching of import from high cost search to a low cost search and tends to improve welfare. And the second is trade diversion, a switching of import from a low cost search to a high cost search and tend to worsen welfare. So next is we are going to illustrate the concept of trade creation and trade diversion using the absolute advantage model. So we are going to consider two countries that are members of a PTA. First is B, Brazil, Argentina A, and El Salvador S. So which is an included non-member PTA that involves trade creation is present in this figure. We take the perspective uh, of Brazil here as Brazil supply curve of some good and DB here as Brazil's demand curve for the same good. And the Brazil can import the good from Argentina at price PA here, and from El Salvador at price PS. The crucial point here is that Argentina is the lower cost producer in comparison with El Salvador. So, so before the PTA, Brazil has in place a specific tariff of tea on imports. Tea here uh, on import from both Argentina and El Salvador because PA plus T PA plus T is less than PS plus T. So Brazil imports the good from Argentina and the initial import level is ZB here. As you can see here is ZB. And once Brazil joined the PTA with Argentina and the tariff is removed on import from Argentina clearly, PA less than PS plus T. So the good continue to be imported from Argentina. The imports, however, expand from ZB to ZB here, ZB to ZB PTA as the price falls from PA plus T to PA. And because PA plus T less than PS plus T, Brazil imports the good from Argentina and the initial import level is ZB. Once Brazil joined the PTA with Argentina, the tariff is removed on import from Argentina, clearly PA less than PS plus T, so the good continues to be imported from Argentina. The imports, however, expand from ZB to ZB PTA as the price falls from PA plus T to PA as a result of the PTA with Argentina. Consumer surplus in Brazil increased by area A plus B plus C plus D, and produce surplus falls by A, and government tariff revenue falls by C. And the net increase in welfare due to trade recreation is B plus D. So the next I will expand about the second curve is a trade diverting PTA between Brazil and Argentina. It's have a node areas A, B, C, and D extend vertical between PA and PS plus T. So whether the net welfare effect in this figure is a positive or negative value depend on the relative size of B plus D and E. So area B plus D represents the trade creating effect of switching or imports from the higher cost source of Brazil to the lower cost source of Argentina. So however, area A represents the trade diverting effect of switching imports from the lower cost surge of El Salvador to higher cost surge of Argentina. So if the trade diverting effect outweigh the trade creating effect, if A uh, more than B plus D, then the PTA will reduce welfare in Brazil. So here, what should we take from the preceding this discussion of trade recreation and trade diversion? So PTA can be either welfare improving or welfare worsening, whether PTA is welfare improving or welfare worsening is something that must be assessed on a case-by-case basis. So based on evidence of the relative strength of trade creation and trade diversion. So as a consequence of the above assessment of PTA are often made using more sophisticated and numerical version in the first curve and the second curve that is trade economic are often called on the mathematically model that effect of PTA. So if you are involved with the assessment of PTA in any way, you might need to interpret the result of such modeling exercise. So each the chapter in part one of this was concerning out first window on the apprentice. So next will be continued by my friend Yeremia.
So hello everyone. Now I'm going to continue Zelika's presentations. Before I introduce myself, my name is Yeremia. Uh, we're going to talk about NAFTA and the others. So first we're going to talk about NAFTA, North American Free Trade Agreement. So before we jump out to the NAFTA, we should know what is the chronology of NAFTA and what is NAFTA itself. So NAFTA is, as we know, is the North American Free Trade Agreement. So it's an agreement signed by Canada, Mexico, and the United States, creating a trilateral rule-based trade bloc in North America. The agreement supersedes the Canada and United States Free Trade Agreement between the US and Canada. NAFTA has two supplements, which is the North American Agreement on Environment Incorporated Nationals, which is we call it NAAEC, and the North American Agreement on Labor Corporation, which is called NAALC. So in terms of combined purchasing power parity, GDP, it's of its members as of 2007, the trade bloc is the largest in the world and second largest by nominal GDP comparison. So this is the chronology the NAFTA can be made. They made so first from the 1979, President Ronald Reagan proposed a North American agreement in which goods and people of these three countries will cross boundaries more freely. So in after that in 1984, uh, we adopt the Trade and Traffic Act and extend the president's power to enter into bilateral free trade agreement. After that, in 1989, the FTA takes effect for Canada and the US. After that, in 1991, start of trade regulations between Canada, the US, and the Mexico. 1 year after that, in 1992, official like official signing of NAFTA by Canadian Prime Minister Brian Mulroney, US President George Bush, and Mexican President Carlos Salinas de Gortari, if I'm not mistaken. And after that, in 1994, start of trade regulations between Canada, US, and Mexico. In 2006, President Bush arrived in Cancun, Mexico, for 2 days of North American Free Trade Agreement, or called NAFTA, talks with the Canadian Prime Minister Stephen Harper and Mexico's President Fox. And on 2008, NAFTA fully implement all remaining duties and quantitative restrictions were eliminated. Trade growth between the three countries exceeded $940 billion. And in 2012, total of US imports and export with NAFTA countries totaled $1.2 trillion. And in 2014, NAFTA becomes 20 years old. So that's the chronology of NAFTA, short chronology. And next one is, what does research on NAFTA tell us about its effect? So first of all, its evidence suggests that FDI into Mexico did indeed respond positively on to the presence of NAFTA, although there is a constitutional ban against FDI in Mexico's energy sectors. So despite the agreement to the country, NAFTA's impacts on job loss in the United States have been small relative to overall employment trends in that country. The NAFTA ROUs substantially limit market access for Mexico in all but textile and clothing. The NAFTA agreement has had detrimental impacts on Mexico corn producer. In the next one, we'll talk about Mercosur and the FTAA. So, PTA among Argentina, Brazil, Paraguay, and Uruguay was launched in 1991 with the Treaty of Ascension, named after the capital city of Paraguay. This PTA, the Common Market of the South, or Mercosur, took on Chile and Bolivia as associate members in 1996 and 1997, respectively. Peru, Colombia, and Ecuador become associate members in 2003 until 2004. Venezuela signed a membership agreement in 2006, but at the time of the writing, finalization of the status is waiting ratification in the Brazilian and Paraguayan parliaments. Well, Mercosur entered into force in 1995 as an FTA. A customs union was to finalize by the 200 200 movement of laborers, and physical capital is a long way off. And Mercosur entered into force in 1995 as an FTA. A custom union was to finalize by 2006. Free movement of labor and physical capital is a long way off. So, the formulation of Mercosur has had a positive impact on the amount of trade among its four core members, and the technology profile of trade goods is higher for trade within Mercosur than for trade between Mercosur and the rest of the world. At the end of 1994, the governments of 34 countries in the Western Hemisphere met at the first summit of the Americas. They agreed to pursue a free trade area of the Americas, or called FTA, with the goals of concluding such an agreement by 2005. Beginning in 2002, the United States began to implement the increased protection of its steel sectors and increased subsidies for its agricultural sector. Within Latin America, these measures were seen as unfortunate and called into question the spirit of the FTA process. The Brazilian government was practically concerned about US steel protection, having at one time attempt to move up the FTA negotiations deadline to the end of 2003. The United States eventually agreed to keep the original 2005 deadline. This deadline was missed. So in the 2004 summit of the Americas taking place in the Monterrey, Mexico, proved unable to solve remaining issues. The most significant disagreement was between the United States and Brazil. The United States had insisted that issues related to agricultural subsidies and anti-dumping measures be excluded from the FTA or negotiations, to be pursued only in the ongoing multilateral trade negotiation taking place as part of the Doha round. Brazil objected to the stimulations as well as to the insistence of the United States that the FTA negotiation was of government pressure and intellectual property. And the last one, the fifth summit of the Americas, took place in 2005 in Mar del Plata, Argentina. It was hosted by President and Nestor Kirchner, who formed an alliance with Venezuela Hugo Chavez. And that's all from me. Next one will be presented by Adrian. Thank you.
Hello guys, now I'll explain about the ASEAN and AFTA. ASEAN was formed in the 1967 and currently includes 10 countries: US, Brunei, Cambodia, Indonesia, the Lao People of Democratic Republic, Malaysia, Myanmar, the Philippines, Singapore, Thailand, and Vietnam. In 1992, the first 6 members of ASEAN formed an ASEAN Free Trade Area, or AFTA, but this PTA now includes all of the members. The AFTA is an attempt to reduce intra-PTA tariff and non-tariff pressure. This is done using what AFTA terms the Common Effective Preferential Tariff, or CEPT. The CEPT means that AFTA is in the process of reducing all intra-PTA tariff to the 0 to 5% in the Valorem range. In the wake of the Asian financial crisis in 1997, ASEAN formed a relationship with the East Asian countries such as China, Japan, and South Korea. This has become known as the ASEAN Plus 3. ASEAN Plus 3 initially focused on financial issues, but there has been talk about this regional partnership involving into a PTA. This was overshadowed by a number of ASEAN Plus 1 agreements, including ASEAN China, ASEAN Japan, ASEAN India, ASEAN Republic of Korea, and also concluded in the ASEAN Australia New Zealand Free Trade Area. As you can see, the first picture is the ASEAN logo, the second is the meeting of the AFTA, and the third one is the AFTA logo. And now explain about the regionalism and the multilateralism. Regionalism and multilateralism represent two alternative trade policies options available to the countries of the world. Regionalism is a political ideology focusing on the development of a political or social system based on more region of the world, normative or economic interest. Multilateralism is generally considered to compromise certain qualitative element or principle that shape the character of the arrangement or institution. First, we start in the 1950s and the 1960s. There have been what called as the first wave of the PTA in the developing world, particularly the Latin America. This was often conjunction with the protectionist policies against the rest of the world. And you can see in the beginning of the 1980s, this began called as the second wave. The role of the second wave of the PTAs in the world system is to become called a building block or a assembly block to the multi-trade liberalization. As a building block, BTS could evolve as a ever-expanding system that bring more and more countries into postures of trade liberalization. And as you can see, the positive side of this is if the perspective of the international political economy suggests that the positive side of becoming a building blocks and the custom union is they can have a role in reducing international conflict. The example of this international conflict is military conflict and also having a clear benefits to each other country. And that's all for the regionalism and multilateralism. And now it's about the conclusion from our group. The G8 and the WTO have allowed for exception to the basic non-discrimination principle in the case of 4 avenues to PTA, FTA, and CU, enabling class arrangement and GATS arrangement. This and other PTS has been part of the world trading system for decades, and all of it points to their continued presence. The evolution of the PTA in Europe and the Americas and Asia are some prominent examples. The PTAs may improve, worsen, whatever depending on the balance between the trade creation and the trade diversion effect. The trade policies face the significant challenge of incorporating the preferential predilection of the WTO's member countries into a general multilateral evolution of world trade. This challenge can only be met by WTO oversight of active PTA. And that is all for our group. Thank you.